What is up, YouTube? T-Roy here with another cool video. Today we're going to do part 4 of check out my guitar collection. We started recently and I've put out 1, 2, and 3, and if you haven't seen those videos, you might go back and check those videos out before you see this one. Now again, I said this I think on our last video, you don't have to watch those first. I mean, I'm doing them in parts of 3. That way I can kind of tell you the way I acquired it, a little history behind each guitar, so you know a little bit about it. And so I thought if I did my whole collection on one video, the video would be extremely long. So I decided to do it in parts of 3. So 3 guitars are instruments at a time. So that's what I've done. So the first 3, 1, 2, and 3 has been out for now the last few weeks. I've been putting them out. This will be part 4, and so let's get started. Here we go. Alright guys, the first guitar I have here is this guy. This is a Seagull. This is an S6 original. This is in cedar. It has a cedar top. Now this guitar I bought from my dad when I worked for him. I've had this guitar, I think if I remember right, I've had it 23, going on 23 years. We got in Seagull, we were Seagull dealers way back then, and then you guys know I love Seagull as far as I think for the pound for pound what you get. I think they're a great guitar. Now I have a lot of guitars I love, and there's a lot that I think possibly might be better, but you know, you pay a lot more. But for what you get on a Seagull guitar, I don't want to go into a video about that. You guys know. Y'all can look back on other videos I've posted and showed you some of the new Seagulls that have been coming in. But they still make the S6 original. This is one of their best sellers. Still is one of my best sellers. They're very affordable. But I purchased this guitar from my dad, and as you can see, it has been played a lot. And I take this as this is what I call my campfire guitar. It's a guitar I can just sit around and bang on, and I don't really worry about, not that I try to, don't try to protect it, but I don't worry if it gets a beat up or if it got a little nick on it or something like that. But it has been a great guitar. I've carried this guitar so many places with me over the years, and still going strong, still sounds amazing. But I purchased it for that very reason. My dad got in, back then, we'd get in Seagulls periodically here and there. And you know how you get, they all sounded great, but you'll get that one guitar out of 10 or 15 or 20 that just has something about it. It just sounds so good, and that was this guitar. And I kept playing it when it came in, and we had it there for about a week and a half or so, and I kept playing. I thought, man, if I let this go and I don't get another one in, is as cheap as it was. And I think back then this guitar retailed for probably $350. That was the map price on them, $300, $350. Now they're little, I think they're still in that range, if I remember right. They may be $399 now, but I think they were around $350 range back then. And of course, I got it a little bit better price than that, even because I got it wholesale through my dad, his store. But yeah, I got it. I've had it ever since. I absolutely love this guitar, and it's not necessarily a thing of beauty, but it just sounds so stinking good. It's so reliable. Again, carried around. I call it my campfire guitar, but yeah, I love these guitars. I love this one. So this is my Seagull S6 original, and this is in a cedar. It has the cedar top, S6 cedar, I think they call this one. So that's it, man. Let's go on to the next one. Okay guys, the next guitar I'm going to do is this guy. This is a Gibson, obviously. This is a Les Paul Standard, a 1985 Les Paul Standard. To be more precise, this is a Gibson Les Paul Standard with a Kaler tremolo system. I know you guys have noticed that already. My dad bought this in the 80s. Now this guitar was built January 16th of 1985 in their Nashville factory. And I really have always, since I was a young man, played on this guitar. I thought it was a cool guitar. It was unique, obviously, having a Kaler tremolo system. Back in the 80s, everybody thought you had to have Kalers on the on your guitars, or you had to have a, you know, a floating tremolo system, whether it was a, you know, a Floyd Rose or whatever. But so Gibson did have some of these guitars and did some of these. Now, is this my favorite guitar? The way I like a stop tailpiece on my Les Pauls personally, but this particular one was bought by my dad in a store called the Melody Shop in Dallas, Texas, and he purchased this guitar in the 80s. I think it was right around that time, around 85, 86 when he bought it. So it was a unique, cool guitar. He's had it for years and played the heck out of it. I played it the heck out of it. I love the guitar, I love the pickups. It is a little different. If I had it, you know, if I were to buy one, my other Gibsons, they don't have the Kaler trim system on it, but it is unique. You don't see them very often. I know you see them with them, but not super often. But this was before Henry Jeskowitz took the company over. I think he took over in 86. This was built in 1985, January 16th. So probably about a year before he took over. Now, it does have a locking head nut on top, if you see it right here. And yeah, this was a cool guitar. Has a lot of history for me on it. I know this is not for everybody with the trim system on it, but it still plays and sounds just like a Les Paul. It sounds great. I know a lot of people say that you know, Floyd's and Kalers and floating trim systems are tone killers. I've heard that before. Man, this thing has tone for days. I played it, and I don't think it's killed any tone. I do again prefer it without them, but it is what it is, and this is the way he bought it, and this is sentimental and special to me, and I love this guitar. I played a lot on it and still play quite a bit on it. But yeah, this is my 1985 Gibson Les Paul Standard with a Kaler trim system on it, and this was my dad's, and now it's mine, but I love this guitar. So yeah, let's go on to the next one. All right, guys, the next instrument I have is this guy. This is a 1985 or 6 Peavey Foundation S. And this guy was the reason I started playing bass. I'll never forget when my dad brought this thing home. He bought it here locally at a music store close by. It was called H&H, and we had them in this area. They were owned by Brook Mays. For those of you who are more familiar with Brook Mays, that was kind of their parent company. But in Dallas, they had Brook Mays. Here we had H&H's. But we had one right here locally. This is before he ever owned his own music store. And he purchased this thing, and he purchased a Peavey amp that went with it, and a nice bass amp. But the amp and the guitar, the bass, I remember him coming home one day and plugging this thing up and just hitting that first note, and then him playing along with some music and stuff, and I was like, I was a young kid, and I was like, wow, I want to play that. You know, it really inspired me. I had taken a little bit of guitar, very little, like a few months from an uncle of mine. And probably you guys are going, well, if your dad was such a great guitar player, why didn't you take from him? You know how it is taking with your dad sometimes. Even though my dad was an amazing guitar player, he was better than my uncle who taught. It just was easier to take from him. So I took from him for a little bit. It never really learned much of anything, but this inspired me to start my journey, and this is why I'm playing not only bass but guitar, and that's what I play mostly now is guitar, but I still play a lot of bass. But this bass was just the reason, and when he started playing on it, I was just like, wow, I've got to get me one of those and eventually start playing. So when I was 15 years old, I had a saxophone that I had from school when I was in band for a year and a half, and I traded it in. My dad had just bought his music store, and I traded it in to my dad, gave him that, and of course he gave me an old Applause bass. If you remember Applause, Ovation's lower line at the time, and it was kind of Gibson's Epiphone in a sense, but yeah, applause bass and black, and I played that thing, and that's where I learned. But I really learned kind of on this, and this is what inspired me. But this bass was just not only sounded great, of course you can see it has a P bass and a jazz bass style pickup in it, 2 tones of volume. You know, it has a jazz neck on it, one of those thinner necks. If you're familiar with jazz and P bass necks, the difference, P bass is a little bit bigger and thicker. But yeah, it feels great. But man, this bass right here is so much sentimental value, because really this is the reason I play guitar as well as I do, and bass as well as I do. Not that I'm sitting here telling you I'm some amazing player, but you know, I would have never pushed myself to go here and into college doing a lot of this stuff if it wouldn't have been for this bass right here. So this bass to me is a big reason that I do what I do. Now I may still be in the retail end of the game as far as instruments and stuff, because my dad had a music store and I grew up in it, but I don't know that I would have been a player. And because of this bass, I play guitar fairly well, I play bass fairly well, I sing, of course, I do play piano too. So this was the start, and this was the reason. I will never get rid of it. You couldn't give me enough money for this bass, and I know it's not probably worth a whole lot, but I absolutely love it. It still sounds great. It really does. I play my 5-string, my Padula that y'all saw, way more than this, but again, I do play this on occasion, just pull it out and play on it. But anyway, this is my Peavey Foundation S with a matching red headstock bass. So, and again, I think this is an 85 or an 86. So that's it, guys. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. And if you haven't seen our previous videos of check out my guitar collection, I did 3 videos, 1, 2, and 3, and this will be the 4th video. So if you haven't checked those out yet, go back and check that out. If you'd like to see those, they're on here. And that's it, man. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. And remember, guys, play like it's your last day. We'll see you later.